Bud Crawford versus who? Who? Israil Madrimov in Los Angeles? Drakey. We gonna talk about it. Boxing Ego is back on your monkey ass, so be prepared and get ready. Let's dive in.
Drake? Madrimov. Terence Bud Crawford versus Israil Madrimov. We got to talk about it. So Terence Crawford is looking to get back in the swing of things, and he's looking for his next fight. As you guys see, boxing reporter Lance Pugmire put a brief article out regarding Terence Crawford and his next move. And according to sources, they're potentially looking at Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov in LA. They're saying that this particular fight could take place in August, and it would be Turkey al-Sheikh, His Excellency from the Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, and their first foray pretty much in the US instead of the typical, Saudi Arabia fights that you've seen, like Usyk, Tyson Fury, Joshua, Ngannou, Wilder, Zhang, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to know from you guys what you think of Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov. The fight, I mean, I don't really know. I don't really have a whole lot to say. We'll see how long this video ends up being. But Terence Crawford finds himself in a very familiar place. Terence Crawford continues to serve Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford also continues to keep having names that could present some level of challenge in terms of, like, let's be real. Like, some of these guys are solid fighters, right? But the thing is, in boxing, can you make an event? Can you find a more than solid fighter and someone who's perceived as great and put together a whole event with them, make money with them, those types of things? And like I just said, I find that Terence Crawford finds himself in a familiar position where he's taking on, like, obscure names that, like, Mean Machine, guys, like, if this goes forth and is greenlit, a guy like Israil Madrimov, who is a champion, and save that thought, because we will get into it before the end of this video. Israil Madrimov has, like, very few fights. He has like 10 fights, and he's not a big name. There's spots of his, people always talk about, oh, activity, Ego. Jerron Boots in his sign to Eddie Hearn because he won activity. Well, guess what? Madrimov hasn't really been the most active guy. So it's just funny to see these things and the statements in boxing from people. But yes, Israil Madrimov has a belt. As far as the fight being in LA, listen, I live in Cali. I don't live in LA, but I live in California. LA is my second home. The tickets are going to have to be very reasonably priced for a fight like this. People think, like, oh, Terence Crawford, merely because he's pound for pound the goods, that automatically converts to sales. But I don't believe that at all. I don't believe, like, there's a lot of guys that are good. Like, every so often you could get a guy who's, like, really good and they found the formula, like Mayweather, who's, like, insanely good, and then he knows how to sell. He knows how to do the 24/7s, knows how to do the all accesses. In Japan, you have Naoya Inoue, who does extremely well for himself and draws a big crowd out there, So he's a guy who's like a pound for pound level fighter that does great But Crawford, I mean, his best market to me has been, and it always has been, where he's from, in Omaha. That's just what it is. And at age 36, probably be 37, you know, so you're creeping up on 40, putting him in LA. I mean, when's the last time Terence Crawford headlined in LA? And I seen comments prematurely saying stuff like, oh, but if Eddie Hearn, this makes sense to be an Eddie Hearn show because Israil Madrimov is Eddie Hearn's fighter. So for Eddie Hearn, I don't know if Crawford has to sign to him or if he's just like kind of loosely working and allowing rematch room and Eddie Hearn to put on the promotion. So either way, Crawford might keep his freedom there and just have Eddie Hearn doing the back end and, you know, the setup, because Eddie Hearn's a promoter, so he knows how to do that, right? But the thing is, some of the premature comments to this news were saying stuff like, oh, put Devin Haney on the card. Devin Haney's fighting in a couple of days. Just because you believe you know who wins the fight, we still got to see it. Like, for example, Devin Haney gets paid a lot. Who's to say that this deal would encompass putting a guy like Devin Haney who's going to command, like, because first of all, let's be real. If Devin loses to Ryan Garcia, then I doubt he would make this turnaround and be on Terence Crawford's undercard. Let's say Devin Haney, who's the favorite, let's say he wins impressively. I mean, who's to say how it looks? Who's to say if a fighter gets cut? So you can't really bank on Devin Haney uplifting the card. The other name that just signed to Eddie Hearn is Jaron Boots Ennis. And I'm seeing people like, oh, just put Boots Ennis. Like, you guys are famous for that. Getting online, getting on X, getting on YouTube, and you start to like conjure up and put together your own card. Nobody said these things, but you read an article for 2 minutes, and now fans who have nothing to do with the business, make $0 in the business of boxing, they start putting together and formulating all these ideas, but they're not in charge of the money. So we have to see what the card consists of from the people who are putting on the event. Like, the fight in and of itself is not formalized to the point where it's officially announced. So we got to chill on, oh, the card, put Devin Haney, put Jaron Boots Ennis. Haney got his own fight. Jaron Ennis, they were talking about a hometown fight. So he's going to do a hometown fight in the summer and then come back by August to fight on Terence Crawford's card. And speaking of Jaron Boots Ennis, which I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. Perfect segue. The other issue with this fight is you got a guy like Israil Madrimov, right? Crawford has been on record stating that Jaron Ennis makes no sense for him to fight. It is, in Crawford's own words, a lose-lose situation. It's like a lose-lose, already my rep ruined. How I beat dude we know will accept losing. Me, underachiever, was an underachiever. Almost thought you would come with the heath. In the words of Joe Budden. He said it's a lose-lose to fight Jaron Ennis, only to fight this guy who has a 10-0-1 record, and he does have a belt, but so does Jaron Boots Ennis. Furthermore, quote the Raven Nevermore, quote Ego, furthermore, Madrimov has a belt, but little did y'all know, he got his belt from a vacancy, right? So you see, he's the WBA champion, WBA World Super Well, vacant champion, vacant. So he didn't beat a champion to become a champion. He fought in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom, and he got a TKO against Kurbanov. And this was just in March of this year. So he's been a champion for 2 months. And he's a champion based on a belt being vacant and vacated by Jermell Charlo. So that's the only reason he's currently a champion. So you can't say, oh, but Boots is the email champ and all that type of stuff, because this guy fought for a vacant belt, which is not significantly better. It's not like the point I'm making is he didn't actually beat a champion. So how could Terence Crawford say that Boots brings zero to the table and is not going to make sense, and the fight, you know, is not what the fans demand, but you can fight a guy with 11 fights total, literally 11 fights total, and he's been a champion for 2 months, and you can fight him in LA. But when Boxing Ego and other fans wanted to see you fight against Jaron Boots Ennis, who has a far better record, then according to Team Crawford, they made it sound like the money wasn't right, like Jaron didn't want it. They made it sound like, you know, it just overall didn't make any sense. And here's Jaron Ennis's record, 31-0 with 28 knockouts. So he got like triple the fights of Israil Madrimov. And to add insult to injury, Boots just signed with Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn's putting on this card. So how come the money can be put up for an Israil Madrimov fight? Boots, for the record, has also stated he would fight Crawford not only at 47, but he said he would fight him at 154. So don't try to tell me that. Don't try to say like, oh, Ego, it's because Crawford wants to move up to 54, because I could pull up the interviews right now where Boots said he would fight him at 54. So we're not about to play that game. Love when you count me out. I love when you count me out. You guys see it on the screen. Jaron Ennis says he'll fight Terence Crawford next at 147 or 154. So you guys can see that on the screen. So realistically, you're with the same people now. You're probably going to work with the same people. Why couldn't it have been Boots in LA? And to me, that would have been the move, and that would have been like a bigger fight. But Terence Crawford continues to make these decisions. Terence Crawford continues to find himself really in the same position where he has to fight somebody who's decent, solid, good, but not really a big name, and it's not going to be received in the same exact way, because even if it's a guy with skill, it's not a guy that the audiences are truly familiar with. So it's not going to hit the same. And this is how Crawford, with his decision making, chooses to follow up with such a great performance versus Errol Spence. And it's funny because you go to Crawford's page, and Turki Al-Sheikh posted this picture of Crawford showing an indication or like hinting that they want to work with him, which is cool. I mean, why would you not want to work with a great fighter if you're getting into boxing? Why would you not want to potentially, you know, have a pound for pound guy and do business with him? I don't have no problem with that. But Terence Crawford is putting this emoji like he proved everybody wrong. Like he did something. And again, the Saudis are paying. So if you could get your bag, get your money. No one's mad at the money part. But again, you're going to be in the same position that you've frequently found yourself in, where it's like, yeah, you're making some money, and you're making money on an event that probably won't make the same money back for the people they're putting on. But I guess you might not care because you're getting paid at least. And then you're putting the emoji like you told us something. Meanwhile, Boxing Ego, I said what I said. I believe what I said. You guys told me he was getting Fundora or Tim Tszyu next, and he was going to force PBC's hand. And I said, I don't see that happening. So guess what? If he fights Madrimov, then he didn't force his hand. He didn't get his way with PBC. Enjoy fighting Madrimov in LA. Like I said, for me, the ticket prices definitely must be reasonable. I don't know Crawford's drawing power in LA, especially with the fight with the guy who has 11 fights. They're talking about potentially the cryptocurrency arena. That's the home of Kobe Bryant, the Staples Center, right? I don't know. I don't know what type of business that will do. I guess if they announce the fight, we shall see. Because Terence Crawford, when he was signed to Top Rank, they didn't put him in no LA that I remember. He was fighting in Vegas and Omaha and stuff like that, New York occasionally. So it's a brand new market for a 36-year-old Crawford. Yeah, it is.